Right guys, welcome to the 13th episode of Below the Bar.
In this episode, expect to find out why the UK housing crisis occurred, what Boris Johnson did to disgrace himself for the final time,
And how we would use the SAS to create more affordable homes.
Let's get into it.
Before this episode starts, I would like to make a quick announcement. I'll be hosting a military preparation seminar day on the 22nd of July at Forders Gym in Birmingham. We have sourced industry-leading experts to cover a range of topics, including performance nutrition, mindset, self-defence, and much more. Tickets are limited, so to secure yours, click the top link in the description. Back to the show.
Hello, and back in to another episode of Below the Bar.
Welcome back to the housing crisis.
Yeah, UK housing crisis special. I imagine that this will draw some new people to the podcast, so if you're out there, hello you little capitalists with your little houses.
Yeah, if you are new, expect to be ostracised.
Yeah, I will be amazed if you last the full episode.
Yeah.
So,
But you might last the first bit, which is Helmet of the Week, because this is, again, a corker. We keep pulling them out of the bag for Helmet of the Week, don't we?
Yeah.
We need to double down on reasons to be cheerful, which is the end segment, if you don't know.
yeah. Well, if you're a regular listener, you'll be aware that we said we were going to cover this individual, so we're going to fulfil our promise. And I am worried that I am going to get fairly irate in this episode because we're covering a trifecta of things that make me very angry.
Yeah, this is very true. You know, I didn't.
It's the Holy Trinity.
Quite emotive. This episode.
The Holy Trinity of cunts. Right.
Yeah.
So we'll get started with Helmet of the Week.
Yeah, an absolutely fantastic Helmet of the Week. Quite dated. I feel like people who are a bit younger might not even know who he is. So if you haven't heard of the British National Party, who are now discontinued for good reason, the leader of the British National Party in about from like 2003 onwards kind of thing was Nick Griffin. If you haven't heard of him, Google him. He looks like, you know, a drop lasagna. So,
Right, yeah. So to contextualise this, Nick Griffin was kind of like the far right poster boy of his day in the UK.
Yeah.
He was a precursor to individuals like Nigel Farage, who were a bit like Nick Griffin light.
Yeah, we like that. Nick Griffin light.
So this guy joined the National Front when he was 14, which is a red flag.
That's a great start for any individual.
And as if that couldn't be bad enough, it was after he read Mein Kampf that he decided to join the National
get
Front.
that on your CV.
Yeah.
What did you do as a youth?
Yeah,
Right.
so he left the National Front because I don't think it was extreme enough for him. And then, as Shep said, he kind of joined the BNP, then rose through the ranks. I mean, not that that's an achievement to become their leader. And I think he was the
Congratulations, you're the most racist person.
Yeah, I think he lasted about a decade. And at one point, kind of like in the early...
In his heyday.
In like 2008-9, when he was getting a lot of media attention, he was kind of like the far right poster boy in UK politics.
He got a European seat, didn't he?
Yeah, he was a member of the European Parliament, which is ironic because he was very anti-Europe. I never get that from these far right people.
Well, they'll just take what they can get.
Yeah.
He couldn't get a seat in the actual Houses of Parliament, so he got on where he could, basically.
Yeah, but the reason this bloke is a helmet is because it does what it says on the tin. He is a helmet.
Yeah.
Like, everything about him is repulsive.
Yeah, literally ridiculous. Like, if you Google, if like YouTube is probably the best medium. If you YouTube his name, the videos you will see are absurd. So by our standards today, he wouldn't get anywhere near the media or the mainstream media.
No.
Back then, he got on like Question Time, like main things like Question Time. I think he had like a special report done about him and that kind of thing. That was to expose how much of a helmet he was, to be fair, but it still was done. He wouldn't get anywhere near it now because it's so ridiculous what he was peddling. It's like so just outright racism.
Yeah. So I feel like the far right now are more discreet with their racism.
Well, one of the things he was quoted of saying was, we might have to rein our views in a little bit so enough people like us so that then we can push the real racism onto them. That's basically what he was quoted as saying.
A lot of people do get tarred with the racism brush, but he was just overtly neo-Nazi.
Yeah, so his party, like Eddie said, I mean 2008, 2009 was their kind of heyday. From 2010 onwards, their share declined by 99.7%. Right.
Yeah.
So I think you can gain the taste from the public there, can't you?
Yeah, and
they didn't do amazing.
He literally got convicted of inciting racial hatred, didn't he?
Yeah.
In 1998, he got convicted, and then he got arrested again on suspicion of inciting racial hatred about 5 years later, but he got off those charges.
Yeah, I went through this morning. I was trying to find where he is now. 'Cause it always fascinates me with like people of back in the day who were quite of notoriety. where are they now? What are they doing? And the only thing I could find was he lives with his family in Shropshire. That was it. Didn't say what he did. Didn't say how he makes his money now.
Well, I can add to that.
Right. Go on.
Okay. So he's now vice chairman of the Alliance for Peace and Freedom. Which like, that's a bit left field, you know.
Yeah.
Has he become a communist? No, it's just another far right organisation.
Is it?
Yeah.
Fantastic.
And their pledge, and I quote from their website, is to safeguard the ancestral European traditions. Right. That screams Aryan.
Yeah. That's ridiculous. So,
and another funny thing, just while we're on that, he said, what's he doing now? Right. So in March 2017, he expressed a desire to move to Hungary within 6 months. Right. March 2017. In May 2017, so like 2 and a bit months later, he was banned from entering Hungary as he was perceived to be a security threat.
So they've caught wind of that.
Yeah.
They've beaten us to it, really, haven't they?
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
But the thing is, for anyone that's not like in the political loop, at the moment, Hungary is one of the most kind of right-wing governments in Europe.
And even they were like, probably not him.
Their president, Viktor Orban, is kind of like the bad egg of the EU.
Yeah.
And he's trying to push everyone to the right. So the fact that they didn't let him in speaks volumes as to how fucking neo-Nazi he is.
I mean, it's quite a big thing to not be let into a country.
Because you're perceived to be a security threat as well.
Even Abu Hamza got into our country. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And he was a convicted terrorist. And he had a hook.
Yeah.
That itself is a security threat.
Yeah. So that's hilarious. And if you're wondering where the BNP went, so the Electoral Commission deregistered them as a party after failing to pay the registration fee of £25.
Right, it always makes me laugh that these fucking deluded kind of far right parties have visions of grandeur of them kind of like rising to the top of British politics. They can't even pay their admin fee.
No, 25 quid. Yeah. You pay more than that to renew your Sky bill.
Basic housekeeping, trust me. And just to kind of really exemplify how much of a hat he was, I'll go through some notable quotes that he spouted during his time. Right. So his thoughts on global warming, and I quote: "Global warming is essentially a hoax." Right. Make of that what you will.
Yeah.
The Holocaust and Zionism, right? So he often, you shouldn't laugh at this, but he often referred to the Holocaust as the Holo hoax.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
So, and you know how, by the time this goes out, you will know our views on Holocaust denial.
Yeah. So, he was also quoted on that Cook report. They asked him about, point blank, about the Holocaust. They kind of bull rush him and ask him. And he goes, there's no doubt that, hundreds of people were, rightly or wrongly, killed in Germany.
Right.
But he said, this nonsense about gas chambers is exposed as a total lie. That's literally his quote. I was like, right. That's mental.
He's a fucking...
The fact that he says, rightly or wrongly, literally means he agreed with what happened.
Yeah, he's a repulsive human being.
Yeah, horrendous.
Yeah.
He's probably the worst person we've had as helmet.
just as a bit of a side note onto the Holocaust theme while we're on it.
Yeah.
Apparently he claimed the EDL was a Zionist false flag operation.
Right.
So if anyone doesn't know what the EDL is, it was kind of... It was the follow-on from the BNP, wasn't it?
It wasn't quite a political party. It was a pressure group.
Yeah, it was more of kind of like... I don't know, like the re-emergence of the National Front in a different form. It was a lot of white, angry skinheads basically being racist on demonstrations.
Yeah, and the whole thing was, no, we're not racist, we've got a Muslim member. That was the kind of...
apparently that was a Zionist...
That was the strength of it.
That was a Zionist false flag operation.
Brilliant. He's just delusional.
He's so delusional, he's kind of like wandered into like mad conspiracy theory territory, hasn't he?
Yeah. You know what's actually disgusting though? This was highlighted when I watched that Question Time the other day. That it was like, so their whole political campaign was centred around using like the military, the armed forces, and Winston Churchill, because they knew that their target demographic were like proper patriots, loved the Second World War, all that sort of stuff. So they were sort of leaning on the fact we smashed the Second World War, won that, and leaning on that to create their own campaign. And it was brought up to him that we wouldn't have won the fucking Second World War if we didn't have hundreds of thousands of black and ethnic minority groups fighting for us.
Yeah, from the Commonwealth.
Yeah, and he was like, like couldn't answer his question.
Right.
I was like, how dare you use the armed forces as like a scapegoat for your own popularity when their whole like your whole party's viewpoint is undermined by the fact that we used black and ethnic minority people
That-
to
those-
fight our wars.
Those kind of people only want to perceive the Second World War through like the European theatre, don't they?
Yeah,
But even then,
they just fail to see it.
we still had fleeing soldiers from like France and Poland, and the Low Countries fighting for Britain. You know what I mean? So even then, from that argument, he's still wrong.
Well, exactly. This is quite funny. He always sort of obviously had issue with the Conservative Party, the Liberal Democrats, all that kind of
his
stuff.
dad got kicked out of the Conservative Party.
Right. Yeah,
because he was also a right wing hat.
Too right wing for the Conservative.
Yeah,
but anyway, so like he always gets there's pretty much no competition with how much they hate each other, those two. But you would imagine like him and Nigel Farage in the UKIP and stuff would be like best mates kind of thing.
Yeah.
But the amount of contempt he has for the UKIP is because they're not quite right wing enough for him.
Yeah.
Like he's like, oh well, we don't agree with UKIP. We're kind of better than them because they're getting rid of the wrong people, basically.
Yeah, you'd think, given that he's such a polarising bloke, he'd try and cling to what little far right kind of community he could find.
Yeah.
But it's like the EDL thing again. Doesn't want to
exactly.
know them. It's
not quite bad enough for him.
It's not nichely kind of neo-Nazi enough for
Yeah,
him.
not quite racist enough.
Yeah.
So just an absolute delusional person, and we could go off for hours. I went through a rabbit hole when I was about 14, I remember, of just figuring out what this bloke was about. That was about the time he was going on. And even at 14-year-old Harry couldn't believe how fucking ridiculous this person was. And the fact that half of, I don't know how many people voted for him, but for the European seat, but the fact that they couldn't see that is absurd.
That's not a great reflection of their character, is it?
Not at all.
That we could recognise that this bloke was abhorrent at like 14.
Yeah.
And actual grown adults with like mortgages, ironically,
which we'll get to.
couldn't identify that.
Yeah, insane. But yeah, anyway, Helmet of the Week this week, Nick Griffin. If you don't know who he is, do a little bit more digging because it will entertain you for certainly a couple of hours.
Yeah, it will. Right, so now on to the main topic. Now, I am expecting we will have to have our first voluntary break.
Yes,
in this episode.
I think so. This is going to be quite a long one, so strap yourselves in. You might have to section this off over a few days.
Have a lie down halfway through.
Because we're going to.
It could get quite heavy.
And as a side note, it's about 28 degrees in here. So
yeah, it's fucking
that's
really
the other
hot.
reason.
I've even printed my notes off. I'm that fucking irate about this topic.
Yeah, so there's a lot to cover. We're going to cover the housing crisis. I do want to preface this with a little bit of devil's advocate though, because so you've heard of the inner citadel, right? You heard of that concept? No. So inner citadel's like if you can't have something, you automatically think it's a stupid idea. So the example is if someone's broke their leg, that they and it can't be healed, they would cut their legs off and say, well, the point of having legs is ridiculous anyway. I didn't want them anyway. Or when you go, you would ask a girl out and she would say no.
Yeah.
You go, oh, I didn't want to shag you anyway. So in this scenario, it would be, we're not in the position at this point to move out and get a house. So we're like, oh well, housing's stupid. So there is that, okay, and we get that. So don't go in the comments and be like, yeah, well, you're just saying this because you can't get a house. Yes, okay, I get it. But the things we're still going to say still hold weight because the whole housing crisis exists because of the reasons we're gonna get into. But I get the fact that it's easy to say in the comments, right, that we're just saying that because we're not on the housing ladder. So I just wanted to preface it because that will be the initial knee-jerk reaction from everyone listening who's on the other side of this. Not that we're kind of completely one way or the other. Well, you might be. Which we'll get into that. Anyway, but I just wanted to preface it by saying that because I know that will be the 100% knee-jerk reaction in the comments, so I'm going to undercut you.
I'll just add to that as well. If you are our age, in our generation, you bought a house, then you're a cunt. So, right?
Yeah.
And that's that.
I can quite clearly see the two different parts of this environment going. Ooh.
Right, so let's cover some basic house crisis admin.
Yeah, basic crisis admin.
Yeah, start the episode, got to cover some admin, you know that. Let's set the scene.
Yes.
What is the UK housing crisis?
Well, essentially...
there's not enough homes.
Yeah. We're not building enough homes for the amount of demand that we've got.
Yeah, and we haven't been building enough homes, effectively, basically since the 1950s.
Yes, since the end of the Second World War.
Make of that what you will.
Yeah, so simply just with mathematics, you can see the problem emerging where we haven't got enough homes for people who are coming through the system of, turning 18 and wanting to go and move into homes. If there isn't enough homes, there's too much demand for the amount of supply. So prices get driven up and etc. etc. That's how things start to get a little bit murky.
So if I cover the macroeconomics
Yeah.
and the bigger picture, and then I know you've covered more on the individual level.
Yeah.
So then we go into that.
Yeah.
As the kind of the introduction to the housing crisis. Right. Okay. So it is estimated that we need around 442,000 new homes each year over the next 25 years to close the housing backlog.
Okay, I'm just going to come in on that and say, just to contextualise it, so 442,000?
Yeah, every year for 25 years.
In the year 2021 to 2022, the government built 230,000 new homes, which is about half of what we need.
And in their Tory 2019 manifesto pledge, they promised 300,000 every year.
Yeah, so
which is
already
still
70,000.
under what we needed, and it's also not what they're delivering.
Yeah. So
they failed on both fronts there.
Failed on two fronts.
They set the bar deliberately low.
Yeah.
And still haven't met it. So
that's hilarious.
That's like pulling a bird, right, and saying, oh, like caveating it with, oh, I'm not really good in bed, and then you take it to bed and you can't even get a stiffy.
Speaking from personal experience.
Yeah, speaking from personal experience there.
Yes, yeah, that's exactly what it's like. That's hilarious. You manage your expectations and you've still fallen foul of that.
yeah, that's true.
Yeah, that's terrible.
And we haven't met our housing target since 1950s. And we'll get into why in a bit, but if you now just cover what it's like for an individual our age now looking to get on the property ladder, what that entails, and why it's effectively massive kick in the balls.
Yeah, so not necessarily just our age either. So I've brought up the average salary for, broken down by age. So we've got like 18 to 21, 22 to 29, which is where we are, 30 to 39, etc. But I'll take the highest, which is 40 to 49, and the highest of the 2 years I've got. So it kind of just shows a drop from 2021 to 2022. But I'll use the 2021 number, which is higher. So it's about £31,000 a year. That's before tax for the 40 to 49 bracket. Clearly, they're the people who aren't looking for homes because they're probably, at that point, you're already kind of expected to be on the property ladder.
Yeah.
Anyway, so £31,000 a year. If you're looking for the average priced home, which is £285,000, which is
in the UK.
A lot of money.
Is that excluding London?
That is excluding London, because obviously that would skew
it massively, wouldn't it?
But £285,000 is the average price for a home. If you wanted to try and get that, long and short of it is you can't. So
unless you move somewhere like Hartlepool, up north, and no one wants to live there.
If you had a 10% deposit on that, it's obviously £28,500. You would essentially be able to borrow £139,000 from the bank. Okay, so that leaves you then with a gap to fill in order to get the average homes, not even a fucking good one apparently, in a good area, of £117,000.
That's fucking shit.
So how disgusting is that? That's on the average, the highest average salary for the highest age, and you're putting down a decent deposit of almost £30,000, which is a fair amount of money.
That's a lot of money to accumulate.
Yeah, exactly. Especially when you consider, right, which I'll go into later, rent is ridiculous. So if you're renting somewhere up until this point on the average salary, you've got to factor in expenses, heating, food, all that sort of stuff, and you've still then got to put savings away to then accumulate 30 grand, put that into a house. Your average repayment's going to be about £900 to about £1,000, depending on where you are and what the interest rate is and how long you have the mortgage for. But just to contextualise how ridiculous it is, if you are on, that's not a low salary. 31 grand's pretty decent.
That's a decent salary.
But it's average by age group. Average when you get to 49 years old, which is when you expected to already be on the property ladder. And if you want the average home, it's not even a fucking decent one, you essentially can't get it because you need to bridge the gap of over £110,000. So if you would have to, by that estimate, put the deposit down of around £140.
It's getting to the point now, right, where getting on the property ladder isn't even within your hands anymore. You're almost waiting to come into money. Like you're almost willing the deaths of family members.
Yeah, at this point.
Because if you
need inheritance.
Just say if you're on that wage, that average wage, you've still got to fucking squirrel away money, like Squirrel Nutkin, for years to accumulate that kind of money.
Well, you think so? I'll break it down a little bit. So on 30, but on about 30 grand, you take home around £2,000 a month.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you're renting, average rent is £830 a month. Leaves you with about 1,100. That's not including heating, food, going out, buying clothes.
What existence is that?
It's not. That imagine, like, that's no holidays. That's like no eating out. That's shopping at Lidl as fucking cheaply as you can possibly do it. Just to squirrel away loads and loads of money in order to buy a house, which is someone else's value, really, that you're trying to adhere to because it's what you've been told you need to do. Someone else's good investment, because your parents told you it's a decent investment. Yeah. And yeah, I just think it's probably not worth the squeeze.
No, it should. We should just say now, I appreciate that we are incredibly privileged to be in this position in this country. To be born where we were born, we're incredibly privileged. I'm not comparing ourselves to Somalian refugees. I'm comparing myself to previous generations who grew up in this country.
Yeah. It's a like for like comparison.
Yeah.
You can't do that. You wouldn't compare like the standard of Man City to the standard of fucking Accrington Stanley, would you? Because they're two different people.
Yeah,
two
exactly.
Completely different things. You have to compare like for like you say.
So I'm comparing myself to previous generations who had it a lot better and have shafted us. Yeah. But we'll get on to that.
So if you look though, I haven't quite got the stats for what it was like back then. I think, top of my head, the average house price back when our parents were buying houses was about 3.5 times the average salary.
Yeah.
If we take this example of 31k average salary, which is on the higher end, to a £285,000 house, 10 times almost. 10 times the average salary.
So
that's ridiculous.
3 times the average salary is a lot more attainable than 10 times. That's some basic maths for you.
That's probably the reason though that banks lend you 3.5 times your salary.
Because
that's what it used to be like,
yeah.
But that hasn't changed. That's top of my head, but I imagine that's what it is. They don't lend you 10 times, do they?
We were talking about this earlier in the car. Like, what are actually so say you've done the impossible and you actually got to the position where you can kind of afford a house, right? What are the actual motivations of it? Because in my eyes, house prices aren't going to keep rising.
No.
So the investment incentive isn't there anymore in the same way that it was for, say, our parents' generation.
Yeah. The only caveat I would say is if you buy, like a manageable house and you do it up loads, but again, you've got to factor in the money you're going to pump into it.
But even flipping,
so it's probably not going to be as lucrative as you may think.
You can't flip houses as easily anymore though, because building costs are so high now as well.
Yeah, so everything's raised, and the gap between your purchase point and the sale probably isn't as high as you think. Like we were saying, our parents' generation, they didn't buy the houses as a investment. They just bought it because they were able to do so.
And just through the process of existing, they've
literally
sat on a gold mine effectively.
Like you take our houses for example, they're pretty much doubled in value. Mine probably a little bit more than that actually, and that's not because my parents have done loads to the house. They have done a bit, but that would have accrued so much value over the last 40 years.
100%.
So if you take doubling as the kind of going rate, right? If someone buys now today a £300,000 house, just sits on it, doesn't do fuck all to it, in 40 years is that going to be worth 600 grand?
I just don't see how it can. I just don't see how it can be.
Yeah, if it is, then the housing crisis is going to be even worse in 40 years' time.
Yeah. The only way that, like, if it goes like that, it will go the way of Japan, whereby you can actually get like generational mortgages.
Right. Yeah.
That's where like you had literally passed the mortgage down a generation.
Yeah.
Well, that's perverse.
Yeah.
That's like extreme capitalism, isn't it?
It's true.
Like, where's the incentive there for young people to kind of integrate and work in society? Where's the hope for them? Where's the carrot?
This is it. I always get the massive problem I have with kind of saving up and looking at this £300,000 house and trying to wiggle your way into a 40 grand deposit and then whatever. Obviously, you end up paying because of interest. You end up paying 350 grand, whatever. The actual materials you get with that purchase, is fucking not worth 350 grand. No. It just breaks me that that's even a thing. Like, it's probably worth maybe 80,000 what you're actually getting for the money.
Yeah.
But obviously you got to factor in location, etc. But I just think to completely overhaul your 20s and 30s, as in like maybe not enjoying yourself as much as you could, not travel as much as you can, all that kind of stuff, to invest in something because it's an investment opportunity, rather than living where you want to live, maybe renting, whatever, because you can live in a little bit more of a manageable country potentially because rents are a bit cheaper, and actually enjoying your 20s, 30s, 40s, rather than thinking every 5 minutes that you've got to manage your spending because you've got to think about putting away fucking 30 grand if you want to, at the minimum, you know.
And the other thing, right, that I've got a fucking bee in my bonnet about is, have you seen the state of the new homes that are built?
Terrible.
They're like they're all fucking copy and pasted.
Yeah.
No creativity has gone into the architecture behind them. They're literally little fucking shoe boxes.
Yeah.
In the middle of nowhere, not near any amenities that are in walking distance. You know, you have to have a car, which is shit town urban planning in my eyes. Because like we're trying to move away from the automobile as a mode of transport. But if you buy a new house in one of these in like housing estates in the arse end of nowhere, if you don't have a car, you're fucked.
Yeah, and well, the reason people are doing that though is because houses are more affordable there, and if you buy anything near any amenities, the house prices just absolutely skyrocket, and you can't get
there's a reason why these housing estates are in the arse end of nowhere. It's because of the shit planning laws in this country, which we will get on to.
We will get onto that, yeah. We're just going to round up on that. We're going to get deep here, right? but you know, I'm sure you've seen it when Jimmy Carr was on Stephen Bartlett.
Yeah.
Gets asked what the meaning of life is. I think it's the best way someone's ever put it is enjoying the passage of time.
Genuinely.
Right. So that if we take that
in its simplest form, that is the meaning of life.
Yeah, exactly. So if we take that, you know, if you're when your kind of good years essentially, like 20s and 30s and maybe into 40s, where you've got loads of energy, you know, you can pretty much you've got less responsibility, that kind of thing. For you to sacrifice so much of that for a future investment, which might not even yield that much, you don't know.
You might
do. But
you might not even be here to enjoy it. It might not even materialise even if you are here.
Yeah, exactly. For you to sacrifice so much of that because you didn't want to rent because it's thrown away money, so you ended up living somewhere you really didn't want to live, in a place you really didn't want to live in because that's all you could afford, quote unquote, because you went down the conventional route, and you've actually taken a hit on a lot of life's experiences that you could have enjoyed the passage of.
Yeah.
I just think it's not worth. I just think it's a little bit. I don't think it's necessarily a terrible investment. I want to say I'm not like completely against, but I just think about it a little bit and don't just have the kind of herd mentality.
I was going to say, don't just be conditioned into it because you grew up with your parents telling you that you should be on the property ladder.
Because for them, they should have done.
Well, because as we've covered, it's different for them.
Yeah.
Like my parents bought this house in 1990 for £90,000. So it's a 3-bedroom semi-detached house, and it's now worth like, I don't know, 300 and something.
Insane.
And they do fuck all maintenance on it.
Yeah.
Literally, as you know, they literally, not trying to slag my parents off. They've literally just existed in it.
That's it. And I don't want to like, you know, if you're saying fucking house, good luck to you, well done. That's great. And if you want to do that, brilliant.
Good luck.
Just don't not think about the other option, because there is other options of how to exist, certainly in this world. You know, there's a lot of opportunity out there, isn't there? So just don't let it skate by and just think this is the only way to go about things, because that's a lot. I think that's what a lot of people would do. That a lot of people just let it take them.
Yeah, and the other thing to remember is that mortgage is adult territory there. You know, as soon as you owe the bank money, that's serious. It's not the kind of thing that you should rush into.
Yeah. The other thing as well is, think about who's benefiting here.
Yeah, the bank.
Right? So, yeah. So, the way the banks make money...
Not you.
...is by lending you stuff, interest in it, and then they get it back from more money, right? So, they do that to businesses. They lend businesses money, and then they interest it, so they get more money back. But they're realising, fucking hell, businesses don't really take loans out too much. They do a little bit, right? But how can we make it so that every cunt needs to take a loan out? Oh, we'll just say that we'll do the mortgage thing, we'll put a little bit of interest on it, job done. And now they have they have autonomy over every single fucking person in the market. And now they have to, now you have to pay the bank back 50 grand more than the actual thing is worth.
Yeah.
And that's because the system benefits the fucking rich.
Yeah. And if you want to know why you shouldn't trust banks, watch the film The Big Short about the global financial crash in 2008. Because those people are literally just gambling with your money, mate. So anyway, carry on with what you had. That was a big tangent. So that was a good overview there, basically. There aren't enough houses. The houses that there are unaffordable because the demand far outweighs the supply. And our generation is feeling the brunt of that.
Yeah.
we've set the scene now.
There you go.
Let's now get into why there is a housing crisis. There's three main reasons, and they don't reflect particularly well on Labour or Conservative.
Yeah, so we're going straight down the middle here.
So we'll go in consecutive order. Right, okay, we'll go chronologically. So we'll start off immediately post-war. This is the Labour government now that we're going to throw some shade at. Clement Attlee's government. They introduced something called the Town and Country Planning Act of 1947, which basically made it very hard to build houses anywhere.
Yeah, that's the green belt and all that kind of stuff.
So originally it didn't explicitly include the green belt, but there's been new iterations of this act since then, and it now encompasses the green belt.
Right, okay.
So the problem with, I mean, I'm not an expert in fucking planning.
No.
But effectively, I think it makes getting development, it's a case-by-case situation, and it has to go through the local authority. So it's not rules-based or zones-based. So it's not like, if you're in a certain zone and you adhere to these rules, you can build a house. You have to send off your individual application, which is then independently reviewed on a case-by-case basis.
Which of course takes ages.
And individuals can object to it.
Right, okay.
You know?
Yeah, that's just...
So it takes fucking ages, and obviously it's arsey, because a lot of the time someone is going to have an objection to your development, aren't they?
Of course they are. There's probably a million and one reasons why they would do as well. But some sort of overhaul of that would probably help things out, right? Because, like we said, the problem is insufficient supply for the demand. So the more houses we can build, and a lot of the reason, I'm guessing, a lot of the reason they haven't hit their housing target is because a lot of all this fucking red tape.
So immediately after this was introduced in 1947, house building rates fell by a third.
Right, there you go. Yeah.
Immediately.
Fucking brilliant. And whose idea was this?
The Clement Attlee Labour government,
okay.
which did bring us the NHS, but this wasn't their finest move.
Yeah, fair one. Yeah, that's mad. I don't know, what would be the upside?
Protecting the green belt.
Yeah, brilliant.
There was this fear of urban sprawl.
Yeah.
Which was just like a Victorian thing, I think, that carried into the early 20th century. This idea that the entire UK was going to become like a massive factory, effectively.
Fucking mental.
Which is stupid, because I think about like 5% of the UK is currently developed on something like...
Yeah.
You know when you get a plane, right, you're going over the UK, look out the window, most of it's still green. Like vast swathes of it are still green.
And that is what makes it kind of really special to live in. But at the same time, logistically and practically, it doesn't really make much sense.
You've got to find the balance. Anyway, we'll get on to like how we can amend Town and Country Planning Act. Now let's go on to another reason, the right to buy scheme that Margaret Thatcher introduced in 1980. So if you're not aware of this, well, if you don't know who Margaret Thatcher is, then you live under a rock.
Yeah.
But basically in 1980, to win some votes, because her economic plan was going down the shitter, she basically gave people in council houses the opportunity to buy their house for significantly less than the house was worth.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with this inherently. This is good. People should have the right to like live in a home. You know, working class aspirations.
Yeah.
You know, you grow up, you want to own your own house. Great. The problem is they didn't replace the social housing. Right. So I think that the social housing stock in 1980 was about 6 million. The right to buy scheme saw off about 2 million. So now our housing stock is about 4 million. But what you've got to remember is none of that was replaced, and our population now is vastly increased.
Yeah, I'm reliant on that.
So
that would have driven some shit. That's like I say, it sounds like a good idea in the interim, and it would have been a good idea if they actually backfilled the ones that got bought up.
Yeah.
You know, if they were proactive about it and said we're going to do this, but it could cause X, so let's just plug it a little bit.
I'm gonna get a towel.
Sweating.
Dripping in. Fucking. For anyone that's listening, I've now left the set of the podcast in order to find in the kitchen room.
There you go. It is fucking roasting in here.
Yeah, this is effectively like podcasting in a sauna. So I've even gone to shorts and it's not working.
We're digging out here. I've got joggers on, fucking hanging out.
Yeah, this is authentic. They were like this. We're in the trenches.
Yeah.
Nick Griffin would love this.
Yeah.
It's like the war.
Yeah, he uses his campaign, hasn't
he? Yeah.
Right, anyway, number 3.
Was I going to throw any more shade at Margaret Thatcher?
Probably.
Well, she's in a box now anyway, so... Actually, well, this is completely off topic, but... Maggie's in a box, No. Yeah, so this I want to dig at Margaret Thatcher for her sleeping practices. So she was renowned for not sleeping, and she'd stay up till the early morning.
Yeah, and she'd gob off about it.
Yeah, and to be fair, she did work incredibly hard. She would be up reading kind of like briefing papers and stuff. But she always bragged about how sleep was for the weak or whatever. Yeah. And I think she died of fucking Alzheimer's or dementia, didn't she?
Yeah. What the leading cause of which is lack of sleep.
Is sleep deprivation. Yeah. So
I mean, God rest her soul. She could have known that. So.
God rest her soul. Yeah. Well, her death is literally a party in some mining communities.
That's true.
In the north.
Yeah, it wasn't a sad day for all, was it?
So, right, back in, the camera died before our arranged break, so he fucking bottled on that one again.
We might have to go straight through now because we've already had our break technically.
Yeah, it's all gone to shit.
Hope you're all refreshed.
I've got an ice pack. The fan's on in the background. We enacted the cooling drill, so hopefully it pulls through. But I'm not holding my breath.
Yeah, exactly. Right, what we were doing, we were discussing the third reason for the housing crisis, so we'll go straight back into that.
Yeah, so we've had Town and Country Planning Act 1947, we've had Maggie Thatcher's Right to Buy scheme. Yeah, balls up, not the first. So now we're on foreign direct investment and rampant global capitalism, which again is very much within my wheelhouse.
Yeah, very on brand, Freddie. This.
So as I was discussing before the camera wrapped its tits in, London is now the #1 foreign direct investment capital of the world.
Right.
So that means foreign money being invested into the capital. Mm-hmm. So we're effectively prostituting ourselves, to basically anyone that's got a big wallet.
Yeah, so the Chinese, the Russians.
Again, morals are out the window here, which is very on brand for the current Conservative government.
All is fair in love, war and capitalism.
Exactly. Right, okay, so it is estimated that there are £20 billion worth of empty property in London. 20 billion.
Fucking hell.
Right.
Empty properties are mental.
An estimated 34,000 empty residences.
That is absurd.
Think how many people that could house.
Yeah,
right.
Well.
2.1 billion worth of empty property in Kensington and Chelsea alone. So you're thinking that one borough in affluent area of London, 2.1 billion.
That's ridiculous.
Mental, because they're all just bought up.
It's your bad drill, this.
Oh yeah, sorry, my bad drill. I told you, it's all gone to shit. So again, this is very London-centric, right? But, take COVID, for example. Overnight, homelessness was ended in the capitals because they thought that if homeless people were on the streets, it would increase the spread of coronavirus. They were put in hotels immediately, right? Yeah. All these vacant properties in London could house people.
Yeah. Well, also, that would mean there's less discrepancy between the supply and demand that we've been talking about.
Yeah.
Because there'd be now more supply. Yes, in the upper end of whatever, but that would mean that the filter through effect would mean that people who are now living in still affluent homes but not as affluent would live in those homes, and then it would keep bumping up, and all of a sudden the affordable homes would be a little bit more empty, and then you've got space.
So this just goes to show how the system is designed to serve the rich.
Well, yeah.
Right. Yeah. Because this isn't common knowledge.
No,
it's deliberately hidden, I think, from public interest.
Well, it was brought to light a lot when Ukraine happened, wasn't it? When they started to kick out all the Russian oligarchs.
Yeah.
Everyone was like, "What?"
But the thing is, right? See, instead of then kind of expediting that kind of housing back into the economy, and nationalising it or whatever,
they just sold it on.
They've just sold it on to a Hong Kong billionaire.
Yeah. They put a plaster on a gunshot wound.
Yeah, literally. So it's like you had the opportunity to do something good. Oh, and you sold your soul again.
Yeah. And you know that.
Right.
Yeah.
So as a bit of fun, we like a game on this.
Yes.
On this podcast, I've come up with a game to exemplify how much London has had its trousers down by FDI.
Okay.
Right? And it's called "You Sold Your Soul to the Devil" (brackets), and you know that. So I've researched a number of notable landmarks in London, right? And you have to tell me who owns them.
As in, what nationality?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Bonus points if you know the person.
Right, yeah,
you probably won't.
Definitely not.
You probably won't, because they deliberately keep their identity hidden.
Yeah, we'll go with country.
Right, okay. Harrods.
Harrods. I'm going to go with Russian.
Qatari.
Oh, really?
The Qatari Sovereign Wealth Fund. So that's literally the royal family of Qatar own Harrods. Right. Chelsea Football Club.
Are they Saudi now?
American.
Oh, they're American.
Todd Bowler. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Obviously, used to be.
They used to be Russian.
Yeah.
I thought they
used to be Roman Abramovich.
Yeah.
But because of the war, he got turfed out. So, Canary Wharf.
China.
Qatari.
Oh, really? Fucking
Yeah.
Qatar,
So
man.
you know that massive,
Smashing it.
the heart of the financial district
Yeah.
in London is owned by Qatar.
That's crazy.
Right. So everyone always, I hate all these people that wank off our banking industry. You know, it's the banking capital of Europe or whatever.
It's
Well,
all owned by Qatar.
all the infrastructure is owned by Qatar, so
Yeah.
make of that what you will. The Shard,
Oh, the Shard.
landmark London skyscraper. You know, reason to be British.
Yeah. I go Qatari again. It seems to be the...
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
there you
So
That's
oil,
fucking mad.
oil money owns that,
go. Yeah.
and you know
And
it.
you know that.
Yeah. The Gherkin, another notable building in London.
The Qatar again.
No, that's
running train.
bit of a curveball. That's Brazilian.
Oh, really?
Yeah, still not British, but
No,
I'm not Nick Griffin now. I've come full circle this episode. The housing crisis has pushed me to the right.
Yeah.
Right, Regent
But
Street.
you're just against affluent in him.
yeah. I'll come at it from a Marxist perspective.
Go on.
Regent Street. So you know,
Gym Shark. No.
yeah. So Gymshark HQ's on that. The
Yeah.
Apple Store's on that road. It's kind of like the notable retail.
Yeah. Chinese.
No, the Crown Estate.
Oh, really?
So Prince
yeah. Fucking
Prince
I knew
Cha-
that as well.
Prince Charles owns that.
Oh, yeah, and that's like the most expensive real estate, or most expensive street, isn't it? In the
Yeah. So I forgot the actual stat, but I think the Crown Estate earns more in rent from the Apple Store alone on Regent Street than it does all of its kind of real estate elsewhere in the country put together.
yeah, I heard that. That was on a doco
Yeah.
watching on it. That's mad.
Oh, okay, so Fulham FC.
Fulham FC. Yank.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, Pakistani American.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, so I'll give you that. And the Cheese Grater, which again is like another notable London landmark.
Qatari.
Hong Kong.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Mad.
So there you go. Next
All
time.
over the place, but none of them English.
Yeah. So apart from the Crown Estate.
Yeah.
So next time you're in London, you think, oh, this is nice. This makes me proud to be British. Yeah. Well, remember, we don't own any of it, so.
Yeah.
But it's all right because someone made a few quick quids somewhere. So.
Yeah. Looks like you don't own your home.
Yeah. So remember at the start of the show, we said there's probably a lot of new viewers. If any of you are still with us, remember you don't own your own home. Right.
And you just clicked off.
Yeah.
Back to the show.
Now they've all gone. And it's the usual people that we like. We'll have a laugh. So
Okay.
and just to really knock that home, I've got a final stat for you. So in 2017, Chinese investors accounted for 97% of all new development in the West End.
Right.
So if you think, so the West End is like Soho, Covent Garden, Piccadilly, Leicester Square. 97% of all new developments there was backed by Chinese.
That's mental. And that's like the most affluent and expensive parts of London,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
And therefore the most affluent and expensive parts of the UK,
So yeah, so
by extension.
to be fair, I wasn't aware of this until I was kind of researching the podcast. You do look around London, you think, oh, it's all happening. You know what I mean? Like, this is hustle and bustle, the economy's popping off. Yeah, it is.
But it's
But
not going to us.
None of this money is being cycled back into the British economy, really. It's
guess
just
some is.
it's making Chinese billionaires richer.
Well, yeah, the property stuff isn't it? But the actual trade on the street is surely still going to our...
Yeah, I guess you could argue, obviously, that they are investing in Britain, so there's some value in that. But
Yeah.
realistically, like, at some point, that wealth is going to get siphoned off back to wherever they are based.
Well, there's a reason they fucking invest, isn't it?
Yeah.
They're not doing it as a philanthropy
Yeah,
project,
they
are
don't think, let's make Britain great again.
Yeah,
they
yeah.
think, where can I make a quick quid?
They can make the most amount of money.
Yeah.
Like London.
London,
I'll go
right.
there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because the property prices double every 10 years. Right, yeah. So I'll throw my money into that, and then when it goes to shit, I'll take it all away again.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Ignore the cockerel, by the way, if you can hear that. The fucking...
Yeah, my neighbours, it's like the good life.
Popping
Again,
off.
that's a bit of a dated reference, but they're very, they got a green thumb, do you know what I mean? Like, they've got their own farm next door.
Anyway.
So,
Next.
they're the three reasons why the housing crisis has happened. Fucking stop being on the farm. I can't tell myself. I've got the cockerels rent free now. You got fucking pecking away at my brain.
Nice little imagery there.
So they're the three causes of the housing crisis, in my opinion anyway, but he's backed by research.
Yeah.
So I think now what we should do, Shep, is have a go at trying to solve the housing crisis.
Okay, cool. Well, before we do that, I think, yeah. Did we want to talk about rent at all?
Well, we're going to talk about rent
Okay, cool.
in some of my solutions. We'll
Cool.
cover that then.
All right.
because it does need to be addressed.
But what I did, because I've been obsessing over ChatGPT for the last week. So before the podcast, I asked ChatGPT, how would you solve the UK housing crisis? And it came up with an 8-section thing.
Nice.
Much of it, to be fair, links in with what you've been going through. So won't go into them too much because 8 things will be here forever. But it says increase housing supply, as we've been through.
Well, we're going to touch on it.
Yeah, obvious one. Encourage brownfield development, which is a bit like you were talking about with the green belt. Yeah. Improve renting conditions. So I guess that means cheaper.
Kill
rents,
private landlords. Yeah, we're going to touch on that.
Yeah, so am I. Support first-time buyers. Again, kind of an obvious one, but something that isn't done to the maximal point that it could be done to. Tackle empty homes, which has just been what we're talking about. Enhance regional development. So, that's just, it means, there's certain places within the country which are not livable within because they're just too expensive. So you've got to manage that and make
you mean like the levelling up project that
the
government promised and then pulled the plug on?
Then never did.
Make of that what you want.
That's what it's taking it from, I'd imagine. Collaborate with local authorities and housing associations so they'll both work together to make things cheaper and more affordable. And then address financial barriers, so things like interest rates, mortgages, that kind of thing. Manage them and how can we do that. I thought it was quite interesting that just a simple question to an AI got a pretty comprehensive and sensible answer, whereas our government can't seem to do anything of the sort.
See, the thing is, I don't think that's that impressive. I think that's just common sense, which exemplifies how perverted this whole crisis is.
Yeah.
Because the solutions are there. We know what we have to do. It's just no one's done it because it doesn't suit the people that are benefiting from it.
No. Hopefully, we can feed AI a little bit more. Keep going. Now, then when it takes over, it'll know what to do. So we'll be sound.
We need to orchestrate some kind of Marxist AI.
Yeah, true.
Feed it Das Kapital and literature like that, and then hopefully it'll cull all the rich people.
That's how AI works. It's obviously machine learning, isn't it? So the more whatever you feed it, basically, it just takes it into its own direction.
That's great. If there are any computer boffins out there, and you've got your hands on quite a lot of kind of left-leaning literature, then pump it into your AI.
Yeah, there you go.
Right,
go on.
So if anyone watched the obesity crisis episode, you'll know that we kind of split our Brummy Brothers manifesto into sensible and a bit silly.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we've done the same today.
Yes, we've done the same today. Should we start with the sensible?
Yes.
And we'll
start with sensible.
And then the episode will progressively unravel as people stop viewing.
yeah.
So we got
see who's left by it. It's like Survival of the Fittest, one of our episodes,
Yeah. Who's here can we chew off the most?
Yeah.
It's like this competition. It's like whoever leaves a hand on the car long enough wins it.
Yeah. It's a bit like Jimmy Carr. Remember he's like his 8 minutes of most offensive material.
See
how far he can push it.
Yeah.
Go on.
Right. So number one, obviously, planning reform.
Yeah.
The planning legislation in this country is shit.
It's just fucking mega outdated.
So we need a rules-based system whereby basically you're innocent until proven guilty, not the opposite.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah, because like you said, you have to now apply case by case, and it just takes forever. It's a really inefficient way of doing it.
So it should be a zone-based system whereby if you want to build in a certain zone and it's green lighted, and you stick to a certain set of rules that are listed, you can crack on.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing. I was having a conversation with someone who will remain nameless, but has some outlandish ideas anyway. And he seems to think that you could get, an acre of land for 40 grand, right, and build on that. I was like, fucking that sounds endearing, right? I was like, cool. My dad's an architect, so he's all over that kind of thing, finger on the pulse. So I went, surely that can't be true, Went back to my dad. I was like, is it true you can get an acre of land for 40 grand and then build a house for 150? And my dad was like, well, you can get an acre of land for 40k, but you can't build on it because it's on the green belt.
Yeah, so that person is currently now sitting on the land in a tent, having not been able to develop it.
Yeah. He's now wild camping.
Yeah, this individual clearly hadn't thought to look into any kind of legislation. He obviously thought that rules didn't apply to him.
Yeah, so my dad quickly shot that down. Anyway, so yeah, ridiculous. And if that was to be abolished or changed, then that would make it so much easier.
And it would involve some building on the green belt, but that is almost inevitable now.
Of course it is.
We can't not build on the green belt.
Yeah.
But this is I want to go on a rant here, right? This is just coming into my head. This is ad hoc.
Good.
Right.
We like that.
Old people, right? Right.
It's always good when it starts with old people.
Common theme. Yeah. Old people, right, that bought their houses in kind of like the 50s and 60s for fuck all, they're now worth 5 times what they bought them for, and are objecting to new developments being built because effectively they're worried about their house price going down.
Yeah, or their view being impaired.
Yeah, or their view being impaired.
Which is fucking selfish.
That is
really.
selfish as fuck. But the thing is, because the planning system is designed the way it is, it favours them.
Yeah,
and because
they're the
more...
people who've already got a house and already made a shit ton of money from their house.
But this is what you mean. This is people looking out for themselves. They don't care about the fact that there's a housing crisis. They care about the fact that they've got a house worth £500,000 and they don't suddenly want it to be worth £400,000.
Yeah, but it's the whole like the pain of loss is the pain of is worse than the pain of gain.
But the thing is, they bought the house for fucking 6 tuppence.
Yeah,
back in 1843. Do you know what I mean?
It's true.
So like it's so perverse that they're against new people having housing when they were once in that position.
Yeah, but it's like regression to the mean, isn't it? Like, you know, they've got this house now in their mind is worth 500k.
Yeah.
If they've now got used to that being worth 500k, so now they've got in their head when they sell it or whatever they do with it, they're going to get that much from it. So for them to for that to be now worth 400, they feel like they've lost 100k rather than the fact that they've still gained 380k or whatever.
It's mental, isn't it?
It's mad. So you are right. You know, abolishing a little bit building on a little bit of the green belt would fucking make things a lot easier. Because again, as ChatGPT rightly said, right, let's sort out a bit of supply.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
basic like macroeconomics, isn't it?
It's basically
supply
maths.
and demand.
Yeah.
Listen, also, so since 2000, only 1% of the green belt has been developed on.
Fuck.
Do you know all these fear-mongering people that think that there are houses popping up everywhere and that like the UK is just going to be some concrete jungle? Yeah. In 23 years, 1% of the green belt has been built on.
I mean, even if we extended that to 15%.
Yeah. There's still a lot of green space to play with there. Do you know what I mean? Like, you're not going to suddenly lose your village cricket pitch there.
Yeah. You've got 85% of it left, and we're 15xing what we've actually been able to build on.
Yeah.
So surely that's a win-win. Let's just get a little bit of compromise going here.
I'm not going to lie, the current government needs to take every W they can at the moment. Because
right,
they're underbuilding houses by about 200,000 a year.
Yeah, well, like we said, half of what needs to happen.
Yeah.
Ridiculous. Yeah, cool. Okay, next one.
So, my second one is tighter regulations on foreign direct investment.
Oh, this links into my silly one.
Right, okay, good. So, basically, stop Russian oligarchs and Chinese billionaires just buying up fucking property in London willy-nilly as an investment. Yeah. They want to live if they want to live there, got no objection to people coming to the UK to live here.
Yeah.
But I don't want you to use my country as an investment opportunity. You know, I'm not a classic car. Do you know what I mean?
Well, actually either live there or create it as like a rental space at least or something, you know.
So, you know...
At least there's someone using it.
Do you know what the current restrictions are on foreigners buying property in the UK?
I don't.
Yeah, you don't because there aren't any.
Are they not?
No.
Of course there aren't. They just want the...
This is what I mean about us prostituting ourselves to...
Yeah.
You know, basically, right. So...
Basically, Britain's got OnlyFans.
There are limitations on foreigners buying property in the UK, but those restrictions are mitigated if you have a deep wallet, conveniently.
Same as any restriction, really, isn't it?
So the only restriction really would be around mortgages.
Right.
But if you're paying for that house, just outright, you shouldn't, you know, that's not so much an issue anymore.
That's true, yeah, exactly. So, as an anecdote with that, I've got, I'm not going to name him or anything, but someone I was talking to the other day, lives in London, very, very good job, right, really, really good job. His house sitting at the moment for one of his colleagues because he doesn't want to rent because rent's ridiculous. Even he's feeling the strain, okay. He's now looking for property in London. He's like, I might go out of London, but, you know, I live in London, so this is where my life is. I'm going to try and get here. So, like, a one-bedroom kind of flat there, that's, like, decently furnished, looking at about 700k. Okay. So he's been to about 3 or 4 house viewings at 700k. And on all of those occasions, he's gone, okay, I'm going to put this much down, whatever. He's gone to go through with it. And they've gone, oh, you've just been undercut by a cash buyer.
Right. That's
people
bullshit.
just buying shit for 700
That's
grand
bullshit.
straight up,
And this
mate.
is the problem. This is what I mean.
That's what I mean. Even people who are absolutely in the position to buy their own home or buy their own flat, whatever, still can't because they're getting undercut by cash buyers.
Some bloke in Hong Kong who's on the blower might not have even been to London before.
Well, he's not viewed the house.
Yeah.
He's not got to actually live there. and commuting to fucking work. You know, so there's no practical use for that house. It's just like you say, an investment, which is fucking bollocks.
Yeah, I want to put this on record, right? I would much rather we have working class immigration into the UK. People that actually want to come here and do the jobs that British people think they're too good to do. That, in my eyes, is of far more value to the economy than someone buying a massive townhouse in Kensington, sitting on it for 10 years, leaving it vacant, and then selling it for double and fucking off.
100% it is. Because that money, like we've said, that double that he's selling it for isn't coming back into our economy. It's going back to his pocket, and then that's going into the Qatari economy.
And it's about intentions as well. Someone that wants to come here and work and kind of contribute to the community and the economy. Those kind of people are of far more value than someone that sees the UK purely as an investment opportunity.
Yeah, totally agree. Just ridiculous. Again, like a little anecdotally, that is absurd. Like if you've got the ability to, definitely within your financial capability to, buy a £700,000 house, and you go and view like 3 of them, you're like, yeah, this is the one. And then some cunt just fucking buys it straight up. That's how annoying would that be, bro?
How fucking pissed off would you be?
You save what? This is the other thing as well. Imagine how long you'd save up to get a fucking the very, very least a 70 grand deposit, which is 10%, probably a 20%, right? 150 grand. You've saved 150 bags to put on a fucking property, and you still can't buy one. Yeah. Some knobheads on the blower.
That's what I mean. If you think about this diplomatically as well, from like a global politics perspective, we're effectively in a proxy war with Russia and China as it is.
Yeah.
So why are we fucking selling up assets in our capital to people of those nations?
It doesn't happen the other way around, does it?
That's what I mean. And also, you need err on the side of caution with Chinese business. There's another rant here, right? Because every business in China is partially state-owned. It's part of their like pseudo-communism, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, you got free enterprise. But enterprise.
Enterprise.
Sorry, I went into Jonathan Ross. You shouldn't laugh. But yeah, so we're all for free enterprise, right? Until it concerns us, and then we want to control your business.
True.
That's how China operates.
Yeah, and when you've got that much monetary control, monetary power, you're going to be in that bracket, aren't you? Because they're going to want to control stuff that you do.
Exactly. That's what I mean. So it's like, you're invested in the UK. We might take an interest in your business now.
Yeah, I bet you will.
Yeah, exactly.
So it ends up probably being partially Chinese government owned, doesn't it?
Yeah. So they're my 2 sensible ones. You can add to this now. I think we're riffing quite well. Yeah. So we're probably going to throw a lot of shit at the wall here. So
yeah, it's some might stick, some might not. So yeah, before we get into the silly one, I just want to talk about renting a little bit because as someone who has looked at it, as a living choice, I mean, it's just unworkable, really. So obviously we're going through ways to make it less ridiculous. One of those ways would be to take a little bit of the private renting market out and put a little bit more of the public renting, so like the government's own more property and can rent it out at a more reasonable rate.
I like this.
Yeah,
because this feeds into my silly one, which isn't actually that silly, because we're riffing off the same thing here.
Okay, cool.
So carry on.
Yeah, so I was just going to say, let's make sure that, I don't know how you would potentially do this, but make sure that the government owns more than, I think currently it's like just over 1% or maybe under 1%.
Which is stupid.
Ridiculous. And then the 99% is owned by private landlords who just put the prices up however much they fucking want. And the individuals renting that property are at the whim of the private landlord, who's just a fucking bloke with loads of money at the end of the day, who can just make their life hell.
So let's unpack this. We like unpacking things on this podcast. We're quite good at this. Yeah, I don't want to stop myself off.
Yeah, we said this yesterday. We've been calling out bullshit for about 10 years, and now we just do it on air.
That's right. So let's think about the kind of people that are normally like housed within social housing. Could be vulnerable. Could have specific needs, disabilities. Could have addiction issues.
What they definitely are is not 100% really wealthy.
Yeah. Should those people and their needs be at the whim of private landlords?
No, probably
not. Are
not.
those people really in a position to take into account their needs and offer the required services for them?
No, and also there's not that much legislation around it. Like there's not a load of renters' rights, so you don't have to adhere to much if you're a landlord. It's pretty much based off of, are you a good human or are you a bad human?
Yeah.
And if you're someone who's got loads of money and you're a cunt, you can make that person's life misery. Because there was something I was watching before, like a short clip or whatever on the BBC. I don't know how they didn't tell us how much they were renting for, but somewhere in Bristol, and they were paying through the nose for this fucking little 2-bed, whatever. Like they hadn't been able to shower for 11 months, right? Because they're not allowed to turn it on because it leaks, and they know that, right? So how they've been washing was.
Mate, imagine the fucking knob cheese you'd accumulate in that amount of time. That's got to be against the Geneva Convention. No man should be allowed to accumulate that much smegma. Imagine trying to scran that.
Oh, mate, you're not scranning that box, eh? So the way they've been washing is filling up their bath a quarter full because they can't afford to fill a full bath every time they got washed. Yeah. They'd leave that for like a few days and washing the same hogging. So they're essentially living like a third world country's lifestyle because their landlord's too much of a hat.
Wrapped his tits in, basically.
And so that was one thing. There was like mould on the walls in the kitchen, so when they stored fresh food there, it would just go off. So it's unworkable. And then, right, to cap it all off, they got served with a notice that was like a non-fault eviction. So they hadn't done anything to be evicted.
Right.
But they can just go, yeah, well, this house is now too unlivable. So because I've put it off for this landlord, because I've put it off for this long, I now can't make the amendments with you living in the house. So you're going to have to leave, and then I'll make the amendments, and then you can come back. That doesn't account for where those people are going to fucking go.
I'm sorry, that is bullshit.
That is mental.
Private landlords should not have that power.
After that, I think there was something passed, or there was definitely they were looking into it, which is bollocks.
This is so like
the fact that even exists is insane.
Right, this is interesting, right? Because it can't happen in Germany.
Okay.
Because it's literally written into their constitution.
Go for it.
Right, so Article 14 of the German Constitution states that private ownership must not just be a means to personal gains. It has to serve the common good to a certain extent.
That is brilliant.
Right, so an example of this, right, in 2021, Berlin residents voted to expropriate properties in a referendum. So basically, any housing company in Berlin that owned more than 3,000 rental apartments had to then sacrifice some of them back to the state. Because they were seen to be just taking the piss effectively.
Yeah, 3,000 apart. Mate, who needs that much?
That's class.
Property.
But these are the kind of measures that need to be in place to stop landlords taking the piss.
Yeah. Problem is though, it's probably gone to a point now where it would be difficult to do that.
Oh yeah, that's what I mean. Like
because it's so people are taking the piss that much. Now you've let them go.
It's like, where do you draw the line? Because there's that much piss taken in the UK. So like, I don't even think that these housing companies in Berlin, compared to our standards, were charging that much rent.
Oh really?
Like Berlin rent is notoriously low anyway.
Okay.
So like that is how kind of
on it they are
compared to us who
they're not even taking the piss as much as our landlords.
Yeah, and they had a referendum and they fucked them all off.
Yeah, that's class. It's fucking that's a really good idea. That's something we should.
So I'm not saying to fully kind of renationalise renting, but I think, like you said, a certain percentage of the market should always be regulated or owned by the state.
Because it's now like I said, 1 or 2%. Which is insane.
Because obviously you're always going to get swanky gaffs in kind of like Canary Wharf and stuff that are going to be in the hands of private housing companies. And they demand a more premium rent.
Yeah.
But like, a lot of people in the country just need like a roof over their head.
Yeah. Somewhere to live. But this is the thing. It's a roof over their head, but it's not a roof over their head that is mouldy and is going shit. Because these people, mate, like you said, they're not fucking that well off. They're renting a property. They're just trying to get by, right? These people are working in the NHS. They're working decent jobs, right? So why don't we give them an actual livable home, not a fucking home that hasn't got a shower that works, or a home where the bathroom and the kitchen are amalgamated to fucking save space. It's bollocks, mate. So to take it back.
And we are going to get irate.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to be apologetic about it.
To take it back to the individual level, just like we did with the ownership, I've got some numbers to crunch again. So including London, this is. So I've got the stats including London and the stats excluding London. So the average rent, including London, has risen by 1.2% in the last 12 months, which is great. And he's now £1,200 per calendar month average across the country, including London. If we exclude London from that, it's risen by 9.5% right in the last 12 months to a point of just over £1,000 per calendar month. So if we take it back to our example of the average earner, which is 31,000, after tax you're probably taking home 2k per month. So half of your wage packet
That
goes
is
on
disgusting.
just rent. If you add on bills and stuff nowadays, probably 200. You're living on £800, which is terrible. If you've got a dependent child or something like that, that's fucked. It's gone. All your money is gone. And so if we look at, so now I know, as we've said, the kind of dream in this country is to be able to own your own home. So if you're renting somewhere on the average salary, that's cut in half by the rent. Then again, a little bit cut into by expenses, etc. If you're then just living a normal life, in a month you're going to spend at least if you say £600, that's a micro spending in a month, right? So that leaves you with £200. I'm not going to do the maths now, but how long would it take you on saving £200 a month to accumulate 30 grand of your house deposit? Ridiculous. It's just fucking unworkable.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, right, your private landlord doesn't care about your hopes and aspirations.
No.
And he doesn't care about your rights either. No. He cares about his bank balance.
Yeah, well, this is why it's risen by 9.5%.
And herein lies the issue.
Yeah. That's 10% rise in the last 12 months.
This is the reason.
That's crazy.
This is the reason why local authorities should own more social housing.
Yeah.
And there should be a larger social housing stock.
Yeah.
Because local authorities aren't trying to make a profit on you.
Yeah, it's true.
They're trying to put a roof over their population's heads. Yeah, constituents.
That's so true. So I wanted to do a little bit of digging here because in my experience, right, I've travelled around Europe quite a fair bit. My favourite place I've been is Croatia, so I thought let's just have a little look.
Yeah.
So we know anecdotally, I think that renting is kind of more normal in Europe.
Yeah.
So
because it's not fucking extortionate.
So like we said, the kind of end goal, the success metric in this country is, do you own your own home?
Yeah.
Oh, you rent? Oh, you just throw money away, right? That's the kind of thing.
Very different attitude across the
Very
English
different
Channel.
attitude in Europe. So I wanted to have a little look, and so if we take it to £1,000 average rent, excluding London, we'll use the lower estimate. In Croatia, to live in a city centre apartment within walking distance to a beach will cost you between 450 and 600 euros per month.
That's mad.
So
Did it
half.
state which city, or was it Zagreb, Dubrovnik?
It didn't. But that's
just
but there's a range.
yeah.
So the upper range being 600 euros, 500 quid to live probably in Zagreb or whatever Split, Essence places, right?
Yeah.
And you comparing that to living in some Birmingham fucking council house or whatever.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
for
Where
£1,000.
would you rather?
It's a joke, mate.
And also, right, there's this perception of kind of Eastern Europe still being a shithole because people think of like the Balkan Wars, which weren't too long ago in recent memory. They're not.
Well, what did Croatia used to be? What, Yugoslavia?
Yeah, former Yugoslavia.
Yeah, so when it was that, it wasn't as nice, to be fair.
No, it wasn't as
But
nice.
since it's become Croatia, it's really, really...
Yeah, exactly. And if you go to these places now and you travel to them, they're not third world shitholes.
No.
Their quality of living, I would argue, if it isn't already, will be overtaking ours soon at this rate.
Rapidly, I'll
Rapidly,
probably say, yeah. So that, I just couldn't believe that it's double. So if you had two people staying in a gaff, €250.
That's mad. But think how much less stress you'd have in your life.
Yeah, imagine. Like, you've now got to make less. You make half as much money
You
to
can
live.
actually concentrate on enjoying your existence.
Yeah, and arguably living in a Croatian city, walking distance to a beach, you probably enjoy your life more anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
And this is my argument that I put to you at the start of the podcast, where I was like, everyone's so caught up in buying this fucking dream home, but they miss that you could spend 20 years living in fucking Croatia, living the dream, and for the fucking tuppence, really.
That's mad.
And if you're don't forget, when you get your mortgage and you get on the ladder, you get the keys, post your Instagram photo with your fella, all that sort of stuff, you're still paying £1,000 per month as your mortgage repayment at the fucking minimum, really.
That's
actually a fucking lot of
That's
money.
mad if you think about it, right? So you've grafted for years to save all this money up to put a deposit down on this house. You finally get your keys and you effectively cross the start line.
That's it. Yeah.
You're
that's
fucked
it.
before you've started the marathon.
Yeah. So the deposit is one thing, and like we said, we crunch numbers as to how fucking hard that is to achieve.
Yeah.
And like you say, you get there and you're like, oh, yeah, just started, brilliant. And now I've got to pay £1,000 a month for the next 35 years to live.
Yeah.
The other thing I'll say is personal anecdote again. We like these. I was talking to you about this the other day. My parents, their situation. I'm not going to air the dirty laundry too much.
Which is bullshit.
Such bullshit. So my mum's worked part-time for a long period of time. My dad's worked full-time his entire life. They've just done what you were supposed to do, right? So they've worked all the time, worked for however many years, haven't taken any significant breaks in employment. They've got to the point where now they own their own home. Perfect, okay. They've achieved the goal. Fucking gold medal. Well in. Good effort. And that's supposedly you win the game there, right? So you can retire with your dream home. Boom.
Yeah.
Class. Well, it turns out that their pension is probably not going to be as maybe they expected it to be. So it's going to be lower. So living cost-wise, this big house that they've now got, that is paid off, but they've still got rent, the bills and stuff to pay, may now not be workable. So they've played the game exactly how they should be.
Yeah.
Abide by all the rules, haven't cheated anywhere, pay tax all their lives, all this kind of thing. And they're still going to get shafted because they might have to leave their fucking dream home.
It's that shit. So what does that...
A load of bollocks, mate.
That is shit, right? Because your parents are good people.
Yeah.
And like you said, they've bought into the system, they've done everything that it asked of them, and they've still got a shit end of the deal.
Yeah.
What does that say to us, looking at them as an example, as to, what it offers us?
Exactly. And also, the other thing is, it's not like they've got shit jobs.
No, they're both professionals.
Yeah. Like my dad's an architect, right? It takes fucking 9 years to qualify. That's bizarre. And the fact that he's going to do whatever it is, 45, 50 years of work in that field, and still at the end of that being 67 or whatever he is now, he's still not going to be able to do what he wants to do with his next 20 years. This always gripped me a little bit, and we've spoken about this before. I've never been able to really get my head around it, which is why I struggle to, I think really long term in life. And it's the thing of sacrificing all your younger years for the gold, the kind of golden pot at the end of the rainbow, which is retirement, pension, all that kind of stuff. And now for us, the pension is going to be pretty much non-existent, right? It's going to be keep pushed until we're like 80. And when
we're about 40, if we even make it that far past the various other crises that are looming, right, we can guarantee that our pension age will just keep getting knocked back and knocked back. By the time that we actually reach pension age, we'll be about 85.
Yeah, and so this is always my argument. Even if your pension age is, let's call it 70, right? Let's be conservative, optimistic. So let's call it 70. If you're 70 when you retire, what life have you got? Alright, some people at 70 can do shit. Most people at 70
can do jack shit.
Because of the way we live, which we got into in the obesity episode, go listen, can do fuck all. So you've worked and grafted 9 to 5, fucking 80% of your week, every single fucking week, every year, for 50 years, to retire at 70 and have nothing to show for it because you've got nothing to do.
Yeah, but the irony is, their health's probably in the fucking toilet as well, because their job required them to sit down all day, every day, for fucking 40 years.
Yeah, and stress-wise, they neglected their health, they went into junk food.
They put their job first to further their career, to buy the mortgage to the bigger house.
Yeah.
Whichever way you look at it, it's a scam. Yeah. You fools! You're actually a fool!
So, I'm just putting the point across, like, I just think it's a bad deal, and I always say this to people when I'm talking about this, because people don't think like this, and I don't know if it's even, if it's even true. You can tell me if you think so. You've heard me say it before, I'm sure. I believe, the years from 20, 30 to 40, I would probably say, maybe 50, are more valuable years, in terms of, like, you get more out of those years than you do from 60, 70, 80. I just think that's a hard and fast fact. You can do more, you get less responsibility, whatever. I think that's just a truism. Like 20 to 30 to 40 is a really valuable time in your life. So why are you sacrificing it? Living somewhere you don't want to live, doing something you don't want to do, in order to cash in, essentially, in the less valuable time when you're 70, 80, you can't do anything. That's my view of pensions anyway.
Yeah.
But that's the tangent.
Well, I don't think we'll even have a pension when we're older, to be honest.
No.
But
big tangent there, but I mean, I thought it was a good time to bring you.
Yeah.
It's always rent free. That is in my head. That's something I've felt for ages, and I've been through a lot of, if you like, life experience since cultivating that opinion.
Yeah.
And it hasn't changed. So I don't know. It's one of them.
Yeah. So that was a bit of a tangent, but it was very very pertinent.
Yeah. There you go.
So we'll go slightly back on track, but not off track, with my silly idea.
Right. Okay.
And it involves old people again. Make of that what you will. Right.
There's a theme emerging here.
I propose a kind of national purge day underpinned by Marxist thought.
Okay.
Right. So it's not like So a lot of people will probably be familiar with The Purge, the film, where it's basically rich people have pitted poor people against themselves as a kind of...
Isn't it like the one where there's no rules? And
Yeah, there's no rules, but instead of it being kind of like a class-based purged, it's like poor people fighting it out amongst themselves for the entertainment of the rich.
Yeah.
I propose the opposite of that.
Okay.
Like basically, this is a Marxist uprising.
Yeah.
Right, so poor people, the proletariat, to use a Marxist term, group together and effectively ransack the rich and confiscate all of their private property.
Sounds amazing. Very good,
Right. So it's part purge film, part kind of communist revolution.
Yeah. Very revolutionary.
Is a bit of Stalinism underpinning this?
I like it, yeah. That would probably solve things, to be fair, though.
Well, it's two birds, one stone, because obviously a lot of rich people are old. So it would also solve the ageing population crisis.
We have no one left but fucking
Young
angry
people
young people.
full of spunk
and
ideas.
Yeah, living in Bali.
Yeah, then all just fuck off on a gap year.
Yeah, exactly,
Like me.
Links in actually slightly off topic as per. Something that Joe Rogan said. I sent it, I think. He goes, all war would probably be done away with if we only let the sons of the ultra wealthy go to war.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. Because
100%.
normally it doesn't affect the children of the ultra rich.
So if they had to deal with the fucking loss and the loss of life, loss of limb that services have to deal with in Afghanistan, they'd probably be like, this isn't fucking worth it, is it?
Yeah. So famously, Donald Trump dodged the draft for the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
Again,
classic
example.
Just because he's got fucking loads of wedge.
Silver spoon in his mouth, didn't have to fight. Disproportionately affected minority groups, so a lot of kind of poor working class black African American communities were drafted into Vietnam because they were kind of the bottom of the social strata. So it just shows that kind of the system again is looking out for itself.
Yeah, exactly. And this is the problem as well, because you use the example of Donald Trump. He's the first person to advocate for, I love the forces, I'm all over them, patriot, whatever. When it comes to him actually doing something, he's fucking...
where were you in Vietnam, mate?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, you were in America because you're a hat.
It's fucking bollocks. So if you actually just made the frontline forces up of ultra wealthy people, people's sons, then it's probably be war would probably stop pretty quick.
What's like the old adage from World War One, isn't it? It's like lions led by donkeys. The split between the infantry soldiers actually doing the fighting, predominantly working class. Yeah. Then the officers leading them, privately educated.
It's like, have you ever seen Blackadder Goes Forth?
Yeah.
It's fucking class. Like, that is such a good representation of what we're talking about. I think they're on YouTube, to be fair. If you type in Blackadder Goes Forth, just watch the 6 episodes. It's they're fucking hilarious. But it's General Melchett, which is played by Stephen Fry, who's behind the lines, pulling all the strings, who's an absolute hat.
Yeah, he's completely delusional.
Yeah.
He's got no real kind of idea of what's going on in the war whatsoever.
Yeah. And they're just like, they've got the plastic troops, haven't they, on the
just
desk,
plain soldiers basically.
Pushing them off. They're like, they're all gone. Like that's the equivalent. But anyway, again, tangents. Full of tangents today.
But yeah, that's my silly one done, because we touched on the kind of nationalising of the rental market, which was my other silly one. But then when we've unpacked it, it's turned out to be not that silly.
Yeah. So I've linked it in with something you touched on with empty homes. So my silly one, right, is if we find all owners of these empty homes, we give 22 SAS a mission, right.
Oh, it's very on brand, because we've drafted SF into this.
Exactly.
I don't know how you've squared that circle, but we have.
Yeah, well, I'm in charge of this one, so we draft one unit of the SS. We give them an ultimatum, these ultra wealthy fucking Russian oligarchs, right? And we say, either your house, you can keep owning it, but you have to house homeless people, or you just lose the house.
Yeah.
And that's an ultimatum. So and they're held at gunpoint to make that decision.
Yeah. Which is where the SF go into.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So very simple, mine, but I think it will be quite effective.
See, I like this because again, this then ties into what we were saying about the German Constitution, because it's forcing them
to do something
for public good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, I hate this bullshit rhetoric that politicians always use. Look out for it when they're interviewed. If they never want to answer something honestly, they'll just deflect the blame back onto people. They'll blame the markets, because that takes all responsibility from them. Then it's like, oh well, people have the freedom of choice. Well, they don't really.
They always hide behind as well. Oh well, I trust the people to make that decision or whatever.
Yeah.
It's bollocks, mate.
So like with obesity, right? If someone is kind of like clinically obese, they obviously have got a lot of underlying health issues and a lot of kind of underlying eating disorders. They are not suddenly of their own free will going to start eating more healthily and make more healthy lifestyle choices, because there's a reason that they're in that spiral.
Well, therein lies why a personal trainer exists,
Yeah.
or why a dietitian exists.
Exactly.
So if you didn't need them, you know, they wouldn't be there, would they?
So all these people, all these Russian oligarchs, like we said, that are sitting on vacant property in London, they're not suddenly going to give up.
Of their own volition.
Of their own free will. We're going to have to force them. This is why state intervention, to a certain extent, has to exist.
And this is where SF come in.
Yeah, and this is where Mark Billingham comes in.
Obviously, that was just because it was a silly one. But I mean, we could do it in a less,
Oh,
in a
people
less
have got
ridiculous
points.
way. Yeah. We could do it in a less ridiculous way, but I mean, that would probably get it done quicker and more efficiently. But we could definitely red tape it a little bit. Because like we said, there's fucking loads of red tape about building on the green belt, or, you know, where you can actually have a house in the UK. There's tons of red tape around that. But there's fuck all red tape around owning a house and not doing anything with it.
This is actually mental, right? Let's contextualise this. So theoretically, if you own a farmhouse, say like we're not far from rural land. So you know Robert's Farm Shop. Say they decided that they wanted to build a house directly next door to them, and they own the land already.
Yeah.
It would be easier for a Russian oligarch to buy a house in London that he's potentially never visited and will never visit, than it is for Robert's Farm Shop to build a dwelling next to the building they already own and on the land they already own.
Yeah, freeing up another house where someone else could live.
That's mental.
Yeah.
That's how
And that's like
perverted the system is.
a micro example of solving the supply issue.
Yeah.
And that happens millions of times. All of a sudden, you've got enough houses.
Yeah.
Right. When are we getting in power? You reckon?
Yeah, exactly. We're speaking a lot of sense here. Right, I'll be honest, after that kind of largely coherent but somewhat incoherent rant, I think I've covered every point that I had
I think,
about
let
housing.
me just double check. I think I have.
And I apologise for the poor housekeeping in this episode. Fans on in the background, don't know if you can hear that. It started fucking raining, even though it's like 24 degrees. At one point I was sweating profusely and actually left the set of the podcast. The camera died.
Lots gone on, but I think we've pulled it back with our raw passion.
We've pulled that shit out the fire, as expected.
Yeah. And I don't think there's much else I needed to cover. I do like to emphasise the point around rent versus mortgage, because it isn't always mortgage that's the sensible option. That's the take home. Right?
Yeah.
So,
if you're going to take anything educational from what has been a largely kind of biased and rant orientated podcast, it would be that just because your parents have told you to and you've been conditioned into it, don't think that you have to jump into a mortgage.
And enjoy the passage of time.
Because it is effectively like serving a life sentence.
Yeah, almost.
It's pretty much the same amount of time.
I'll give the opposite.
Would you kill someone for the house? Say that to yourself.
I'll give
Because if you would, just kill someone and then you can live at Her Majesty's pleasure for free.
Yeah, no mortgage, lovely. The opposite viewpoint is obviously, you know, when you're renting, you can't do something to the house. You don't feel like you're accruing any value, so you are effectively sweeping the money away. Money's not going into anything. So people, when they're looking at mortgages and owning a home, they see it's like a long-term thing, right? They think, okay, well, I want to, like my parents did, I want to own my own home when I'm too ill or whatever, too old to work, and I need something. So if you were to rent all your life, you're kind of banking on the fact that you can always work.
Yeah.
Because you've always got to have money coming in. Whereas that's not 100% true if you do have a mortgage, because inevitably, eventually, after 35 years of paying through your arse, you'll have your own home, and therefore the payment will be obviously a lot smaller, and you can probably manage that with your pension contributions. But that links back to my point midway through the podcast, which is living your life in the moment solely for your life when you're fucking 70 years old, which I don't think makes a lot of sense.
No, it's that balance. We're not telling you to spunk all your money and go to Australia and get loads of STIs, but at the same time, I'm not saying you to do that. But it's all about balance.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but that's my final point on that, because I want to emphasise we're not just completely insulated and don't think there's any value in you know, home ownership or getting a mortgage because
Well, no, everyone's got to have a place to live, haven't they?
Yeah, of
like
course.
we can't live with our parents forever.
yeah, we spent half the podcast, you know, telling you why it's an issue because so we obviously think it's an issue, but we're just saying how you can kind of get around it as an individual. But
Yeah, and collective activism. That's what we need. We need to be more like the Germans.
yeah, that is a really good system they've got going on. I didn't know about that.
Yeah.
I'll go and live in Germany
Well.
for cheap rent or Croatia. I'll see you there. Right,
Yeah,
anyway.
Yeah. Why did we leave the EU again? What? Right. So yeah. Well, speaking of leaving the EU, this
right.
brings us on to our reason to be cheerful and the rather happy thought that Boris Johnson's political career is now in the toilet.
Yes. Well, it's been in the toilet before, though. This is the.
But this is
I'm quite sceptical.
This is the final nail in the coffin. Yeah, but write him off at your peril.
Exactly.
You are right because he thrives off this.
He's like Real Madrid in the cup final, mate.
Would never ever compare Boris Johnson to Real Madrid again. He's like fucking barrowing finesse in like the fucking Scottish second division cup final.
Yeah, fair one.
But yeah, so at the time of recording, the House of Commons Privilege Committee have published their report on the Partygate
They've just
scandal
had
that was going on.
The diary entries and the WhatsApp messages overturned, haven't they, to them from Boris and his companions.
No, I think this is that's the COVID inquiry.
Oh, is it? Okay.
That's separate.
They still
So
link
this
to
was
how much of a helmet he is.
This was the House of Commons Privileges Committee who look basically into wrongdoing within kind of across MPs, basically MPs taking a piss. This was specifically looking at the instance of Partygate during COVID.
Right. Okay.
You know, these supposed parties that he
Yeah,
had
yeah,
during.
yeah.
Like, anyway, the report was published. It was about 30,000 pages. I've not read it, but I've listened to podcasts that have summarised it. Basically, he did break the rules. They had a shitload of parties. What they told us to do as people, you know, social distancing, wear masks, don't see loved ones, can't go to funerals, you know, all that shit. They ignored
And just
for
did
the
everything.
majority of the first lockdown.
Yeah. So, I mean, we kind of knew this anyway. If you follow anything to do with current affairs in terms of politics, you kind of,
Yeah.
you're up to speed with, there wouldn't really be the allegations and the photos that come out and all this kind of stuff. You know,
Just think about what you said there, the photos
Right,
of
yeah.
it actually happening.
there's literally
Yeah.
a photo I'm specifically referencing here,
Yeah,
which is a fucking Christmas quiz.
Yeah.
Right,
It involves wine,
Yeah.
cheese and cake.
yeah, and the bloke sitting next to Boris Johnson is wearing a Santa hat and tinsel.
Right, so I can't believe, right, you just unpack that. Right, so there's a photo of it happening, right, and he still denied it. Right. Make of that what you will.
How does he fucking get away with
Right,
that?
yeah.
You know,
He sat next to a bloke wearing tinsel,
you got that as a
and he knows that.
work meeting.
Yeah,
bro.
right.
Yeah.
So it also transpires that they had these kind of wine meetings actually in their Outlook calendar.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it wasn't; these weren't spontaneous kind of gatherings that kind of
Wouldn't make it any better.
organically kind of sprouted up in Downing Street. Like these were planned piss ups in the middle of lockdown
Yeah.
while we were all kind of sheltered away on our own.
Ridiculous. And to anyone who actually followed the rules, how much of a slap in the face is that?
Well,
It's
exactly.
Like, fucking ridiculous. But the if you go through his like plethora of excuses, or you know, like if you go through the timeline, he was like originally, okay, no parties happened, and then he said, if they did happen, no rules were broken. Right. So let's just unpack that for a minute. So no parties happened. So he doesn't think anything's happened.
So now-
but if the parties that didn't happen, the parties that you think happened that didn't happen,
But that might have happened.
yeah, if they did happen, all the rules were followed.
Yeah.
Well, that doesn't make sense. First of all, and then he said,
And then he went, "Oh, the parties did happen, but I didn't attend them."
yeah.
Yeah, right.
And then after he was photographed at one of them, he went, oh, the parties did happen,
But
I
it wa-
did attend them,
but it
but I
wasn't-
didn't think they were a party.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and then it was the parties did happen. I didn't think it was a party, and I didn't want to be a part of it.
Fucking so, and right, and to this point, you know, all this has happened, and people see this, and people who are fans of Boris Johnson have seen all this going on, right?
Yeah.
And people are still fans of him, and people still listen to what he say, and people still would have voted for him in the fucking election.
How fucking deluded
Just how-
do you have to be? How insular and dense do you have to be to still back Boris? Given that he's now literally a renowned charlatan. Like, before he was Prime Minister, he was a renowned charlatan. But now he is literally a failed Prime Minister and also a renowned charlatan.
Yeah, I'm gonna steal something for for you guys listening as well, from James O'Brien.
Yeah.
So,
Another spiritual king.
yeah. So it's called the footballification of politics. So when you're a football team supporter, and whatever your football team does, they're the best in your eyes, aren't they?
Yeah.
If they get relegated, well, you support them anyway. If one of their team gets red carded, well, it was against the rudder player.
Come rain or shine, because it's in your blood.
Yeah.
You have to stick by them.
Well,
through
this
thick and thin.
happens with politics, but almost exclusively with Boris Johnson.
Yeah.
He can do absolutely anything, it seems, and spin his way out of it. And these people who are his quote unquote supporters will just support him anyway.
Yeah.
So all these times he's had cheating allegations. He's been on record saying how much he earns compared to how much value he offers. He's been caught lying to public.
He put the son of an ex-KGB spy in the House of Lords.
Oh yeah, brilliant.
Yeah,
perfect.
Right.
What a claim to fame.
Yeah, and he went and visited him while he was PM as well, in his private residence in Russia, while all this shit is going on in Ukraine. So make of that what you will. That's a national security threat in of itself.
Yeah. The best way I've heard Boris's kind of approach to life summed up is he says whatever he needs to say to get him through the next 5 seconds. And then once he's through there, he does it again.
Yeah.
And he does it again. This is why he's a compulsive liar, because he just goes, oh, well, we'll build loads of homes then. And then when someone challenges him on it, he'll just make another lie up and then another lie, another lie.
This is a fundamental flaw when your strategy in life only lasts for the next 5 seconds.
Yeah, we've talked about long-term planning with Morgan.
There's no
I don't know how the fuck he does
There's
that.
no foresight there. Well, this is the great irony, right? Because he obviously doesn't actually own his own home. He was lent £500,000 by the chairman of the BBC, wasn't he?
Fucking hell, that is ridiculous.
Which was another scandal, because there's obviously a conflict of interest there. Because that's a politically appointed position.
Yeah. You don't actually realise either how much money these top politicians, who have their fingers in all these pies, actually make. He was caught on an interview once. He got asked about this £250,000 he earns from being the editor of The Sun, and he calls it chicken feed. Have you seen that interview?
That's stupid.
Yeah, so he calls £250,000 a year chicken feed, which obviously speaks to the other ridiculous amounts of money he's accumulating from other places. But yeah, well, he's gone now, which is the reason to be cheerful.
So this is the reason to be cheerful if we bring it back to the original point, because this is the final nail in the Boris coffin.
It should be anyway.
And if by some kind of complete and utter fucking disaster he does find his way back into the Conservative Party somehow, it will be the end of the Conservative Party. It will fracture. It won't exist as a major party anymore. It can't.
No. But
which again isn't necessarily a bad thing.
I would have said that fucking 2 years ago. But I can't believe how he actually got in the first place. Such a luck of the draw moment. We're floundering after Brexit and all that sort of stuff. He was the Lord.
But again, it's just false promises again, isn't it?
Yeah.
So he makes these promises.
The oven-ready deal.
Yeah. Everyone knew didn't exist, but he still voted for him. So if you're one of those people, you're a hat.
Yeah.
Right. But he makes all these false promises. He never actually has to face up the repercussions of making these promises. He just bimbles onto the next scandal, doesn't he?
It's funny as well, to bring it a little bit more...
He's just turned into a Boris Johnson rant now, sorry.
A little bit more centrist. The fucking... If you're the Labour government in this kind of time...
Yeah, well, the shadow, the government in waiting.
Yeah, you've got to be fucking rubbing your hands. You're like, this is class, we can expose him, all this stuff. They should have been able to be completely trouncing them in the polls. I know they did in the last one, but it's taken them fucking long enough.
I know.
They should have been 4 years ago being like, fucking hell, he's fucked it. We should be able to jump at the gun here.
But the thing is that Boris Johnson and Liz Truss set the bar so low. The right-wing papers now, all they've got to go off with Rishi is that, he wasn't as bad as the other two. So he's like some kind of weird, still right-wing palate cleanser.
Yeah, that's just absurd, isn't it?
That's how low the standard of British politics is now.
Yeah, well, exactly. That's why we seem to... people are apathetic towards it now, aren't they?
Yeah.
Herein lies the issue. Anyway.
Two more things, right?
Yeah.
Firstly, the reason that we chose Boris and his kind of misdemeanours during COVID is because the episode following this will be a COVID kind of debrief.
Yeah.
We'll talk about our own COVID experience.
Throwback.
Yeah, we'll talk about our own COVID experiences, and we'll also unpick a lot of the shit that was going on at the government level during this time, because there is a lot of shit to unpick. So again, could be quite a long episode.
I think this has been quite long, to be fair.
But the second thing is, I'll save, because this will inevitably be another 20-minute rant if we unpick it now. The fact that Boris Johnson was still allowed his resignation honours list, even though he's a disgraced Prime Minister, and on that honours list was Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg, who has kindly not handed his honour back because apparently that would be offensive to the King, who undoubtedly thinks he's a helmet.
But if he's got any fucking sense, he will do, because he's a helmet. But yeah, I mean, he also still gets that £116,000 a year that all Prime Ministers get, even though he was disgraced. So that's like, when you get dishonourably discharged from the military, right, you don't then
Do you get a six-figure salary every
no,
year?
but you don't then get your pension.
Right.
So why isn't that the same?
Yeah.
Because that's effectively what's happened, isn't it? He's been dishonourably discharged.
Because
from
the system
Parliament.
looks after the people that created it. It's
Bollocks, mate.
bullshit.
Yeah.
Sorry, we're getting fucking drawn.
Anyway.
We're getting drawn back in here again. See,
Anyway.
so tempting when you dangle such a plump turkey like Boris.
Plump.
Yeah, emphasis being on plump.
Yeah. I mean, we could get into loads of stuff, but I'm sure this episode's been long enough. So I hope you enjoyed the housing debrief.
Well, we threw a lot of
crisis.
shit at the wall there, didn't we? And
Yeah.
I've already forgotten most of the things that we said.
Yeah, this might be a challenging one to edit, but we'll see. I'm going to leave it uncut, so I mean, hopefully we haven't cancelled ourselves. If you are new around here, make sure you...
There's no way they're still watching. We lost them when I went into my first Thatcher rant.
Probably, yeah. But by the off chance that you're still here, please subscribe and drop a like on the video. If you did disagree with any of our points, feel free to leave a comment. I'd be interested to see. It's quite an interesting debate 'cause it is quite emotive.
Yeah.
And there is a kind of herd mentality, with this kind of thing. So it'd be interesting to see the kind of consensus in the comments.
Yeah, so obviously, I think we're quite outspoken with our views on house ownership. So it'd be interesting to get the perspective from the other side of the fence, who are homeowners, given that we haven't actually represented a homeowner on this episode.
Yeah, so feel free to leave a comment, make sure you subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.